He moved to hit her, and in that split second, the room held its breath. 282 soldiers froze, not knowing whether to intervene, to cheer, or to be in shock. What they witnessed would become a story told over and over, not for the violence itself, but for the quiet, undeniable power of someone they had all underestimated. Asterisk, what city are you watching from today? If this story resonated with you, hit subscribe for more real stories about extraordinary people. Her name was Lieutenant Sarah Harlow. To most of the soldiers in the base, she was simply the quiet one. She arrived 6 months ago, a figure who moved through the barracks with calm precision, always on time, always meticulous, but never seeking attention. She cleaned her gear with a dedication that went unnoticed. She studied her manuals with a diligence that didn't call for recognition. And she trained with a focus that could intimidate anyone who had the eyes to notice. But most didn't. The other soldiers assumed her quiet demeanor was meekness, mistaking patience for submission and observation for hesitation. They didn't know that behind those calm eyes lay years of training, countless hours of discipline, and a mind sharpened to a blade of strategic clarity. Sarah had learned the first rule of survival in a world dominated by ego and aggression. Never reveal your full strength until the moment demands it. And that moment came unexpectedly. During a routine morning drill in the central barracks, the sun had just begun to cut through the dust-filled air, casting long shadows across the formation of soldiers standing in precise lines. Their uniforms crisp, their posture rigid, the hum of quiet chatter filled the air. Sergeant Mitchell, a man whose arrogance preceded him, strode through the ranks. His boots hit the ground with authority, his chest puffed, his grin carrying the smugness of someone accustomed to asserting dominance over those he deemed weaker. He had singled out Sarah before, testing her with dismissive comments, nudges, and challenges. She always responded with calm politeness, never showing frustration, never raising her voice. But that morning, something in his demeanor shifted. Perhaps it was the way she had answered a superior officer with quiet confidence the day before. Or perhaps it was the whisperings from other soldiers that Sarah's skill in drills and exercises was unmatched. Whatever the reason, Mitchell's pride could not tolerate it. He approached her with the intent clear in every movement. The soldiers around them sensed the tension, but assumed it would end with a verbal rebuke, maybe a shove, maybe a laugh at her expense. Mitchell, however, wanted more. He wanted to assert himself physically, to remind everyone that he was untouchable, dominant, unchallenged. "Move aside," he barked, mockery lacing the words as if her mere presence had offended him. His hand rose, prepared to strike, and in that instant he believed he had the upper hand. But Sarah didn't flinch. Her gaze met his without fear. And inside, a storm had already begun to rise. Years of preparation, of enduring underestimation, of proving herself silently, all converged into a single precise moment. Her reaction was instinctive, trained, and deliberate. As his hand swung toward her, she countered with a motion so fluid it seemed almost like a dance. Her movement was not frantic or wild. It was precise, controlled, and devastating. The force landed perfectly, shattering his arm. The sound of it echoed, not just physically, but through the very air of the barracks, carrying with it the weight of the lesson being taught. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Not a single soldier in the formation breath spoke or reacted. Sergeant Mitchell, the once dominant figure, crumpled to the floor, clutching his arm. His arrogance replaced by disbelief and pain. Sarah stood still. Composed, the calm in her posture belied the power behind her strike. She didn't gloat. She didn't raise her voice. She simply returned to her place in formation as if nothing had happened. Yet the room knew everything had changed. The soldiers around her began to whisper, their eyes wide, some with fear, some with awe. They realized in that moment that they had been looking at strength and skill all along, yet had failed to recognize it. In the days that followed, stories about that morning spread throughout the base. Soldiers would recount the incident in hushed tones, describing how Sarah, quiet and unassuming, had demonstrated a level of precision and strength that many men had yet to achieve. They talked about her discipline, her composure, and most importantly, her courage to act when the moment demanded it. Mitchell, once feared and revered, learned humility in the harshest way possible. He realized that strength isn't measured by intimidation or bravado. True strength, he discovered, comes from preparation, focus, and the ability to control one's actions under pressure. Sarah, in that one decisive moment, had taught him a lesson he would carry for the rest of his life. But the story wasn't just about the confrontation. It was about respect. It was about the quiet power of those underestimated, the unseen dedication that often goes unnoticed until circumstances demand recognition. Sarah's act wasn't one of vengeance. It was one of clarity. She revealed the truth that discipline and skill cannot be ignored, that arrogance blinds even the most experienced, and that true courage often speaks softly, yet echoes louder than any shout. The barracks, once filled with casual chatter and the clatter of routine, carried a new atmosphere. Soldiers moved with more awareness, their eyes more attentive, their respect no longer demanded, but earned silently. The lesson extended beyond Mitchell, beyond Sarah. It touched every soldier who witnessed it, reminding them that appearances can deceive, that strength is not always loud, and that underestimation can come at a heavy price. Sarah herself returned to her routine with humility. She did not seek praise, did not dwell on the incident, and did not allow the whispers of awe to alter her focus. She continued to train, to study, and to excel, her actions silently commanding respect. Her leadership was subtle, but undeniable, a reminder that influence often comes not from words, but from consistent action and integrity. Over time, the story of that day became more than a tale of confrontation. It became a lesson in observation, patience, and the quiet power of mastery. New soldiers arriving at the base were told of Lieutenant Sarah Harlow, not as a tale of fear, but as a narrative of capability, discipline, and courage. They learned that respect is earned, not assumed, and that even the quietest person might carry strength beyond imagination. Looking back, one could see that the moment was never about breaking an arm. It was about revealing the hidden potential within someone underestimated, about showing that skill and courage can't be measured by appearance alone, and about reminding us all that true power often resides in those who act with focus, precision, and integrity. The barracks eventually returned to routine. Yet the memory lingered. Every glance at Sarah reminded soldiers that there are lessons in humility, that respect is priceless, and that courage often shows itself quietly. In the decisive moments that define a lifetime, it's a story about resilience, about hidden strength, and about the truth that underestimation is the beginning of surprise. It teaches that mastery is not about boasting, but about preparation. That power is not about aggression, but precision. And that the quiet ones are often the ones who leave the most profound impact. So, the next time you encounter someone who seems unassuming, remember Lieutenant Sarah Harlow. Remember the 282 soldiers who learned in a single instant the lesson of humility, respect, and the quiet, unstoppable force of someone underestimated. Strength can be silent. Courage can be invisible. And sometimes, the most extraordinary victories are achieved without a single shout. What did this story make you feel? Where are you watching from? Subscribe to Soul Relief Stories for more real stories that heal the heart.